Right, okay. It's less hot this week. I've put the mics in the right place. We're off to a better start.
Professional.
Getting there.
As the Europeans might say. But we will have to stop saying that at some point soon. Hopefully.
So, like, what? If we leave the EU, we can just, like... Croissants won't be in the bakeries anymore. We'll just drop all, like, the bits of EU culture that have migrated their way over here.
Yeah, we'll call them
It makes
croissants.
me wonder, because, like... Because we've got, like, a lot of continental stuff over here now. It's been absorbed into our culture. I wonder how much of our culture got absorbed by them. How many places in France sell a full English breakfast?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Shit like
both
that.
impossible to tell and probably a lot to an extent. I mean, you know, like who invented sausages or whatever, and who has them as part of their national
German?
breakfast. But it's always a certain kind of sausage.
But we absorbed a lot of our culture from Germany in the first place.
Yeah,
like our language.
Cultural bleeds. That's probably a thing.
But yeah, right. So my first topic is Preparation and Survival Instinct, which I developed quite strongly as a child. I was always very keenly interested in things like bushcraft from like probably the age of 6 onwards.
I think
and
most
kept strongly.
people who kind of grew up this time before 20 years ago or so
probably
still had at least an element of that, and they probably still would have,
and then it's something that's grown with me stronger throughout the years as time progresses. I've always kept it and developed it further and further, and to the point where, like, as an adult now, I've got this very, very strong drive almost on a daily basis about wanting to practice survival skills, elements of preparation in my life, making sure I've got this, like, I don't expect there to be like an apocalypse level event because they're stupid to expect that, and some people like hope for that.
You mean physical and almost like kind of naturalistic survival skills, like that which people would have had in or need to have, like Bear Grylls-ing it, for example. You know?
And if shit fucking hit the fan, and we found one day electricity just disappeared, and it wasn't, all of the what do they call them, the services of fresh running water and everything like that, utilities, just disappeared. And so I've always, I don't expect it to happen, and a lot of people, after watching zombie films and disaster movies and absorbing it through media, kind of wish for it almost. There's that wanting it to happen because, wouldn't it be great? I mean, we know someone who's very much like that, and he was hyping up this idea in his head that like 2012 was going to be it, because that was a big thing as well, wasn't it?
Oh, was that? And you get these doomsayers. And I don't think the point is that people want to pursue these survival instinct based activities because they think these things are going to happen.
It's not even between sometimes just they want them because they think they're going to happen. Sometimes it's they want them to happen, and I don't have that kind of outlook on it. But I've just got this need in the back of my head that I need to be prepared just in case. Like, I don't expect it to ever be like something I think will ever be needed. Because that shows there's an evolutionary mechanism there, isn't it? That's an evolutionary mechanism manifesting, and then it's almost like you're creating. I have the drive and want to do these things, and I know this sort of thing isn't going to happen when there isn't going to be, I don't know, a cave bear that turns up and then like kills us in our sleep or something. But it's you want to pursue the activity regardless. I don't expect to ever need to employ it, but I like to know that I've got it there just in case. I mean, it's like taking out an insurance policy, surely, isn't it?
Yeah, in a sense. And
you never expect to crash your car.
And I think, things like media and films and stories in general, and the idea of like, hero archetypes and things like that, it probably instills a certain amount of that as well. Like, the wanting to, if it came to the crunch, then you're ready to...
I'd like to know that I'd probably be okay because...
Fight the good fight or whatever.
I've got a bug-off bag. Bug-out bag, rather. Bug-off bag. I've got a bug-out bag and things like that, just like, here's everything I need to fucking live for a few months if I just needed to grab that and disappear somewhere or whatever, and shit like that. But the point being, so after like explaining all this, is it's dying out in culture. It's seen as like a secondary utility. There's not even a utility in people's views, and it's almost like it's just a hobby. No one seems to be able to like have that kind of instinct anymore. But if we went back 50 years, it might be slightly more common. I mean, there's this sort of archetype of like people went and did things like scouts when they were little. And then going back 100 years and further, it was like it was still an absolute necessity that people knew these skills and practiced them. But in this modern day and age, it's all dying out.
So almost you're saying that like there's some sort of scout genocide or something.
Yeah, it's a good way of saying it. Like
not necessarily, or a mass extinction of people who have some sort of like.
It's become a niche rather than something.
I never wanted to go to scouts, and I went to Boys Brigade like twice until I realised it was all like singing hymns and
I never did anything like that as a child.
I was like, I'm coming to a Christian place, run away. I didn't realise I was just here for the tuck shop. But
you still hit the tuck shop before you left, right?
Yeah, no, that's why I was there. It
wasn't a waste of time.
My friend was like, "Oh, you should come to Boys Brigade," and I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know what's good about it."
Sounds a bit
I
gay.
got a tuck shop, and I was like, I'm going to get my pocket money, I'm going to be going to this place. I need somewhere else that sells sweets. I was getting bored of the old shops, but something else that's gone. There used to be sweet shops everywhere, as far as the eye could see.
Turn windows.
All this was just sweet shops.
But yeah, so whilst I didn't do scouts or cubs or anything when I was a child, I spent most evenings after school, a friend and I, we would go, and if there's a bit of woodland by me, by him, whoever's house we were at, we'd be making dens and starting fires. And it sounds like, why at 8-10-year-old boys like just starting fires outside? That sounds dangerous, but we weren't. We'd practice it safely. We practiced it in a way that like it was within control and we could keep it under control. It wasn't going to cause any danger, and it never did. We got burnt because you get burnt. But my dad taught me how to make fires.
Places when I was a kid. I wouldn't be wanting to do so much with the things, or trying to chop down trees or whatever, or try and survive in wildernesses and whatnot. But I'd want to go out places, find new places, and use that explorer links sort of thing. But yeah, I do wonder if there's something along the lines of that people's survival instincts are now directed to social survival.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that's why I think it's dying out, because that was very, I'll use the phrase natural to me. It just seemed like something I wanted to do. It wasn't influenced. Was it instinctual? Was it just that was a hobby that I'd picked up as a child?
Nobody stopped you.
Pardon?
And I think maybe that's a big part of it, because you maybe like, I think there is somewhat of a culture of protective parenting nowadays, more so than there was in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
I think in the 80s and 90s it was still, at least to an extent, get out the door and go play and be a kid.
What are you doing indoors on a day like this?
It's like, why aren't you trying to be an adult?
Because my nephew, I kind of worry because he doesn't want to go out, and he doesn't even want to go out and like see friends, and he's he lives in a suburban area. He's got friends who do live by. He's got like multiple parks nearby.
He probably has online
interest.
I should imagine.
yeah, exactly. That's it. It replaces all that, and I know it's going to make me sound like a fucking 30-year-old boomer.
Well,
and I appreciate online communication. I know it's really fun to like have a few friends on some headsets talking through like a communication program, playing a video game together, and time flies by and you're having a great time and it's a blast. But there's like that's late evening stuff. When the sun's out and it's a nice day and you've got energy, it's like for me it's just like as a child it was I want to be out and playing in the woods.
I have children, and I want to go out and play football with them, and most of the time it's like, one of them I can go out, the other one is just wants to sit in front of a screen, and you have to basically bribe him just to do anything. That's but maybe the world needs people like that, and that's maybe the thing. Maybe
the world's
follows a path
getting too many people like that.
Well, this funny thing,
and not a moderate amount.
My dad used to say to me, "You'll never make a living playing computer games."
Yeah.
And now how wrong was
Fair
he?
point.
So
yeah.
you know, if I didn't listen to him, and you know, maybe it's just where things have to move to. But it would be useful to be cognizant of where that is, and the fact that people don't seem to know where that is. You know, so it's like it could be an idea for him to think, where are we going?
Yeah.
I don't think that's thought of enough, and then maybe I think there's at least been a revolution in thinking where are we going recently, but has it been enough? I don't think it has, and I think it needs to. It's all well and good, like having the intellectual dark web talking about these issues that other people can't talk about. But I mean, is your mum talking about these things? And I mean, I think it's funny.
Yeah.
Was it?
Sometimes
PSA
that's
Sitch,
what scares me.
PSA Sitch keeps saying things that every time I'm like, man, I've said this before, but he says, no, it wasn't PSA Sitch, was it? Somebody else. Anyway, I can't remember. Somebody said recently, red pill your mum. And I know
I've kind of been red pilling my parents, like not the
concept
fucking
of red pilling, but I like the sentiment.
Yeah, I talk to my parents about my politics in general.
Yeah.
I get their views on things. I'll sit and listen to what my dad has to say about something, because sometimes he's got a nuanced view. Sometimes he's got what I might consider slightly a bit, I wouldn't say ignorant view, because that's probably, and ignorant's quite a strong word in my opinion, but just he's not got the full picture, but he sort of made a judgment based on what media's chucking out there and things like that. It's, you know, the things like, oh, Donald Trump's bad because, hey, he said this and the media's talking about that, and oh, Boris Johnson's going to be a terrible prime minister, when he was there going, oh, well, we should back up Theresa May and stand behind her. It's like, what? So yeah, like, but I let my parents know what's going on with me politically, and like why I've got my political feet stuck into this political soil. And
yeah, it's hearing people
so
you care about make unsolicited claims.
Yeah,
like Donald Trump's a racist. Oh, I'll have to have a look into this. I've never seen racist before.
Luckily, they didn't jump on that bandwagon for mine.
McMahon, so I mean, you know, Vince McMahon doesn't seem to entertain racists. He's one of those least racist people in the history of. I mean, there seems to be zero racial bias throughout the WWF. There's never been a question of WWE or what we call it now, damn pandas.
No, for me, it's my parents don't like loud, flamboyant politicians is probably the best way I can describe Boris and Trump. Very, very big characters. They want someone who's a bit more reserved. That's what they respect in a politician. But it's like, for me, quiet and reserved is like kind of bullshit.
It's really hard to be a good leader when you're quiet and reserved. You know.
Exactly. It doesn't get stuff done. I mean, they idolise, both of them, Margaret Thatcher, and no one fucking liked her when she came in, because she rocked the boat, you know, and it's just like...
I think if you ask anybody what Boris Johnson's politics are, what he believes in on a philosophically political level, I think people would not be able to answer that question. I think you'd probably find the percentage of British people that could say even vaguely what his politics are, what he believes in politically, what his stances are, his principles are. Like, none of them would be able to answer. It'd be like less than 1%. Like, I mean, I could barely, and I've looked into him. You know, I've tried to read his Wikipedia page, and there's a section that says what his politics are, and even that, you know, I know that's not going to inform me enough. I need to talk to the guy and say, what do you believe about this? What do you believe?
It's always
about
best
how
from the horse's mouth rather than being
like
manipulated and mutated by another source as well.
Exactly, and
but then you're never going to get it from interviews either, because media's interviews are always asking the wrong questions, trying to forge a narrative, trying to direct conversation in one direction, not letting them give the actual answers about how they feel.
They're not allowed to, are they? They're rarely. They seem to be compelled not to let their own politics interfere with the people's politics, which, you know, is a product of democracy, I suppose, in a way, but it is also a shame, because it should be voting for people. You know, at the end of the day, these politicians should be people. I think Boris Johnson comes across like a human being. He's a person, because he is an individual. He's not trying to be some sort of homogenous. He's not playing the social kayfabe game.
Yeah, he's snobby and kind of arrogant and kind of pompous. But those are all qualities of a human being, not a robot. So I don't, you know, I'd rather know that he's pompous and arrogant and has that sort of grandeur about him, because fine, at least I can sort of read him and I'm not going, what are you? I can't sort of make heads or tails of what you're getting at or what you're trying to do. If you're keeping quiet about something as a politician, you probably, it's being shady, isn't it? And you don't really want that.
The baffling thing, well, it's not really baffling in a way, and it's I suppose a product of the fact that he is, in most cases of the term, most ways of taking the term, a classical liberal. His first speech as PM was incredibly liberal. It was incredibly left wing. He was talking about
a bit nuts, but it wasn't bad.
But it was brilliant. No, it was. I don't think I've ever heard a more left wing speech. It was
kind of got a bit lost.
We're going to put more
impassioned.
We're going to be, we're going to be great, and we're going to be the best at this industry and this industry and this industry, and we're going to tackle this problem and that, and then we're going to change all these things. We're going to be better and bigger and better and bigger. And that seems pretty liberal to me, and it doesn't seem like it's trying to conserve what's already there.
And it wasn't trying to like shut down people or say we're going to take this away and we're going to make this worse for you. It was all, let's improve the lives for every person in Britain.
Yeah, it seems to me like you're saying, what can we do to
How
make
can I
things
help
better?
you?
And that's just a liberal thing to say, isn't it? That's what they're looking for. Conservatives are looking to conserve things. They're saying if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And he's saying like, no, we're going to fix everything anyway, even if it is great. It's great already, don't care. We're going to make it even better. It's going to be the best in the world. And it's like, well, that's what we want to hear, surely. That's a statement of intent. And we just need to have those words brought into reality. And
how can someone try and make a negative thing out of all this positivity?
You can't make these things happen unless you say these things in the first place. And they're saying, you shouldn't be saying these things. Or I haven't heard him say a thing that you really say is a bad thing yet. It's like, yeah...
Posh man bad.
Opinions. Yeah, posh man bad.
They've just already made their judgments and their reservations about him. That's the thing.
It's one of the things I thought about Boris Johnson. Right, if he'd looked like Hugh Grant, then would everybody think he was great? Because he acts like Hugh Grant.
Yeah,
he's just well.
That's a good analogy. I mean? I like that. Where's my analogy?
I've said if he wasn't so bloody ugly, he'd be a lot more bloody popular. But
he just looks like I don't know. I wouldn't say he's ugly. I'd say he's just. It's a bit round because he's well fed,
I'm being unnecessary.
And he's got an interesting box on. But he's
quirky.
quirky. I like quirky.
Maybe the ladies love the Boris.
Some will.
They love a bit of Johnson.
He's quirky though, and that's what stands out. Because if there was ever an individual prime minister like he really stuck out from the crowd, it was him. But yeah, we were talking about the survival instincts. It's alright. We can drift around. That's what this is about. Just to sort of wrap that up, and then we can move on to like a next bit, because I think we got quite a good little topic there on Boris Johnson as a side topic anyway.
Stream of consciousness style of things.
Totally.
I think it works.
Definitely.
That's how it should be and is.
I think basically, it is dying out, and I'm saddened to see.
It's evolving, I think. It's a bit... is it evolving?
No, it's right. I don't think it's evolving because you get some species didn't evolve and they did die out. And I think it's a case of this was the Neanderthal that didn't become the fucking Homo sapiens.
No, there's still Neanderthal DNA in some people. So.
But it's only a slight amount. But it wasn't an evolution of Neanderthal to like its own successful species.
Evolution doesn't have to work the same way every time.
No.
And I mean,
but what I'm saying is like it is dying out, and basically it's changing into a niche hobby rather than something that was part of everyone's culture out of necessity, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, I guess, because if it's not a necessity anymore, it means that as a culture we've gone so far that like we don't need this anymore. But I still think there's a good value to sustaining it. I would love to try, if I could have the experience of going back 1,000 years and living for a week to try it and see how I got on, I'd love to give that a go. It'd be an interesting experience. And maybe there's a market for that. I like the idea of just chucking myself in at the deep end and just giving it a go.
Bear Grylls would suggest there's a market for these things. The fact that there's places like...
but that's what it says. It's a vicarious experience. For most people.
Yeah. It's not something that is just a part of...
For every 1,000 people who would watch something like Bear Grylls, maybe only one person would be willing to try it.
The argument would be there that you just encourage the way of solving that would be to encourage more evolutionary compatible experiences in society for people across all age groups, starting from childhood, I suppose, like letting kids like, you know, do survivally stuff and even just like naturey stuff, you know? Like,
I mean, like, because when we teach kids sports, why are we teaching kids sports over survivalism? Like, you know,
yeah, well, because we've become watching monkeys rather than thinking monkeys. Like, it used to be
or even grabbing sticks and doing things monkeys.
Homo oculus or whatever.
I don't like that term. That's interesting.
Yeah, watching man or watching. Well, I suppose it'd be what's
Oculus sapien.
Okay, well, that's watching thinking, I suppose. So I suppose that's even better. Yeah. That Oculosapien would be just like watching thinking, I think. It's Pan. It would be Pan's monkey. So Pan Oculus or whatever, watching monkeys. But maybe like the Homo means man, which, you know. Yeah.
I thought Homo meant same.
No, Homo.
Because that's why we have.
No. Because
that's the homo and homosexual. Is like same sex.
No, that means mansexual. Homo means okay. The original term homosexual, like it actually derives.
I thought it was from like homogenous.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe you could be right.
I think
there.
it's probably where our language is so fucked that the same word can have like four different meanings.
I've never been taught that, and this is just what I've just trying to establish from figuring things out, like how the words work, like, you know, deciphering a language off my back. But, you know, it could be anything. Who knows? But yeah, basically, human beings are probably not human beings anymore. They're more like watching beings.
I'm glad at least I still practice these skills. I like to encourage other people to. I'm kind of saddened that most other people aren't like as interested, or I would hate to see like a glimpse of 1,000 years where it's completely died out. I'd like to hope that never occurs. But at the same time, I'd like to hope that there's never a situation when everyone needs to practice these again, because we've come so far that it's become redundant.
I'm sure there's got to be things that people practice that they've been practicing for thousands of years that haven't become redundant.
Yeah, but they didn't have like smartphones for the past 50,000 years.
So
modern humanity or whatever. I don't know.
Redundant beyond just like the rare enthusiastic.
Yeah,
groups.
exactly.
So it becomes completely, isolated. Like
I hate the idea of old skills,
like druids nowadays.
Yeah,
like, you know, yeah.
I hate the idea of old practical skills getting lost to time. And I know that's in a time when like everything's catalogued, so that's not really possible anymore, because all this has become, instead of just something memories, it's now data.
Yeah, but like I say, I mean, I've said there'd be some sort of real life resurgence in the future when people get so sucked into digital everything. There'll be like
someone just goes, fuck it, let's just go outside and stay outside.
People will be like starting to go, or even they won't even be starting to go. They'll be starting to be told that this is bad for you. Science has figured out that we've ruined everything, and this is already bad.
Smoking's not good for you. It turns out, you know, and it all gets flipped and dropped. Maybe.
But I mean, you know, it would be funny because we already know that. We already know that nature's good for people, or you know, doing what is natural is good for people, or doing what is evolutionarily compatible is good for people.
I think maybe my reservation on it is
psychological level, if not on like a physical level.
I guess it just boils down to like my feelings, which is my feeling is it's a shame that other people don't have this as an instinctual drive anymore. It becomes just a want rather than a need. And it's not even a need.
It's almost like the concern I'd have that I share with you here on this one is like, are we outgrowing, or is society outgrowing our own evolution on a physical level? So is there something like on a physical and psychological level that means that we should be doing these things? We should be like doing more nature-based activities, survival-based activities, or whatever. Or, you know,
I mean, maybe that's why there's like the rise of depression, because I don't think it's just
facilitate it. So then the psyche has to adapt and like then have to explore the adjacent possible, which is
a random uneducated thought on this is part of like there's a rise in depression, and part of that is, I think it's portionally a rise of known depression because people weren't talking about it because of taboo. Yeah. And I think another part is maybe a lot more people are getting depression and never actually had it in this proportion before. Maybe something like this plays into it.
We don't know the extent of what mental illnesses could manifest.
Elaborate.
Well, I mean, let's say new experiences that would not have been experienced due to environment or experience or whatever. Let's say that causes some kind of new mental illness that cannot and was not categorized before, which I think is not even a debatable thing that happens. It's, I mean, Trump derangement syndrome, if they're going to categorize that as anything, that's like this
maybe
the way the world we're creating is causing new mental illnesses to actually
that's
come
what
into
I
being,
mean. That's
basically.
my point. That's where I'm sort of going.
That's not so much a product of like, oh no, what are we doing? That's just more of a product of how we've categorized what a mental illness is. I mean, because we're saying like it's a different to the normative form of thinking.
A lot of people spend their times at homes and in the office. So maybe like people by not spending enough time outdoors. That might be what's the cause of so many of these, like, new minor forms of anxiety and depression.
It's at least demonstrably true on a scientific level because they've shown that naturalistic environments have better effect towards mental health and physical health in basically every study that's been a serious study. So, I mean, that's, at least there's that. But the problem is what's been done with this information, and usually it's generally to make people feel more comfortable in environments that they're not actually comfortable in, So it's teaching people's brains the Jedi mind trick, and it almost could be facilitating biases in a way. So society creates biases. It's not that biases are in people. It's this, like, society makes people have to double think things, sort of things, and then eventually they've just got this pile of convoluted thoughts that that can contradict each other at different moments because of the biases or whatever. But we're way trailing off. Maybe, I don't know.
That's
maybe
okay.
We just went deep. I think we just went deep.
But I like that one. I think we've covered a lot of ground there. So that's been a cool one.
It's always on. Like, if I think about something else, we can always go back to that one. There's a lot to it.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce our next one?
Yeah. So this. And again, this could be a pretty big one. The idea of the age of Post-Poe.
So, for everyone, define Poe's law for those who don't know.
Yeah, so Poe's law is the idea that without knowing a clear idea of an intent of somebody's communications or their presentation of themselves or whatever, then it's impossible to tell them, or theoretically impossible to tell them apart from somebody who's acting in bad faith. So basically,
it kind of boils down to you can't necessarily tell an extremist view from a parodical extremist view that's more sarcastic or what have you, because clown world. We're in such a ridiculous time. It's getting hard to tell like what's sincerely ridiculous and what's ridiculously sincere.
Now, the idea of Post-Poe I first heard.
So go on. This one's new to me.
Yeah, Post-Poe. Okay, I'm not even sure what was intended by Hagbard Celine, a YouTuber who was possibly the first YouTuber that I ever actually started paying attention to.
Who is this? Sorry,
I realised that YouTube has this ability to let me see what individuals are talking about. Sorry,
people get shadow banned. People can upload content. You can search it, and it just doesn't appear.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, this
or
is
it doesn't get fed into your feed of like recommended videos, even if you're subscribed.
I don't think he's posted for a while, but
that kind of shit
honestly,
happens.
he got disillusioned with I think what was going on, and honestly, I didn't look too far into it because I can't go around stalking people. Like,
why not?
Let's
What's
go around
stopping
YouTube
you?
And like, well, I don't know. Yeah, because.
But anyway, who was this individual?
Right, Hagbard Celine. He basically used to talk about
Hagbard Celine.
Hagbard Celine. Yeah, he talked about like feminism in the anti-sense of it, and various other topics, problems within Islam that he perceived, different. Looking at people's philosophy videos and tackling why they don't make sense. It was a rationalist in a way, or at least a rationalizer, but he has maybe a checkered past. It seems like he's been in and out of problems with the law, mostly with just like soft drugs related issues and stuff. And it was a pretty interesting story. But either way, there was a video that he produced that included the line, "We are now entering the age of Post-Poe," or "Welcome to the age of Post-Poe," and it's just something that kind of stuck in my head, and it's something I've been thinking about a bit more and more. As far as, I mean, it doesn't seem clear what he meant by it, but
so you've been trying to figure that out.
I've been trying to figure that, but and looking at it, what he means, I think, is that now that there is people aware of the idea of Poe's law, that they can work with the science of it, so that the theory that this could be utilised for political ends, and that now, in that sense, is it impossible to trust basically anybody in politics? I think that's what he was getting at, or if even what that's not what he was getting at. I think it's almost like the logical conclusion of, okay, so if there's Poe's law and the people have become aware of Poe's law, and this is like, there's a fair amount of discussion behind it. It seems like people have looked into all kinds of bits. I mean, I've written a few bits down. I knew I wasn't going to remember anything. But yeah, so somebody's quote here: "Any new member of the CP project who's not a conservative, or is not as conservative as them, is liable to be chucked out. However, any new member who is a conservative, or who is as conservative as them, is in serious danger of being called a parodist and chucked out. This is the first living example of the Poe paradox." So, I mean, people are now saying it's like in extremist groups that they are themselves now conflicted because they can't trust each other, because they're now aware of these things. So it's almost like the age of Post-Poe may well be the age of post-trust. I mean, would that present the conclusion? Is the conclusion of Poe's law that we can't trust anybody?
Well, I think it sort of breaks down to, maybe I oversimplify it in my understanding of it.
Well, I mean, I suppose if
you break it down into
terms of extremists,
taking individual examples one at a time.
Well, when we find, I suppose,
like, do you know what I mean? It's like Titania McGrath. You aware of that? I think it might be run by Jonathan Pye. But like, as an author, as like a Poe's law author of like, you'll see several times a day people going, "Oh my god, I can't believe what this stupid extreme person's saying." It's like, no, this one's a parody account. Like, you know about the parody Twitter accounts, right? So like, they're fucking everywhere.
Like,
and it's fucking, it is trying.
And it's like,
there's several times a week where I'm just having a scroll through political Twitter and I'm like, is this one a parody account? And I'm sat there like racking my brain.
You use 4chan.
That's where I'm seeing it constantly as well.
It seems that the idea of is it LARPing basically?
Yeah,
it's a form of,
and LARPing
is Post-Poe, isn't it? In a way, it's like, I can get away with this, and they won't be able to.
LARPing's an ironic term as well. Like,
exactly,
a lot of people don't probably understand like the origin of that necessarily. Like,
it's one of those terms that the internet's kind of grabbed and decided to shift the meaning of slightly and take for itself because it needs all the language it can get.
So internet
term
it's
changing language quicker than anything else ever in the history of anything.
I stopped because a long time ago, 4chan as an entity split into two websites. They took all of the safe for work boards and moved them onto a new domain called 4channel because they're like, oh, we want to get some of that tasty we want to get some of that tasty ad money, but they won't do that if there's fucking gore and like, ridiculous porn everywhere on the same website. So we'll put all the safe stuff, thinking that'll make a difference. That'll stop everyone. Like, well, people are still going to post, ridiculous extreme content on the safer work boards anyway. Anyway, that I digress a lot there. But yeah, I went through like a period of like 2 weeks of just going. I was able to recognise, this is someone just like being sarcastic and making an extreme example here, and people are going, how can you say that? And I'm just like, my reply was just like, I was trying to coin the term Poe's law, bitch. And I was dropping that like fucking left, right and centre because...
I mean, I've never really been a conspiratist, you know, I'm not...
this is like asinine stuff. It wasn't even like conspiracy stuff. It was like,
this could be somebody just pretending here.
Yeah, right? No. This was like simple stuff.
This could
like
be false. This could be artificial. This could be, you know, like contrived to try and achieve an end so that it's not clear. Now it's like I see it everywhere. Now it's like it seems to be like, you know, is this legit? And like sometimes it's like, you know, I mean, for example, I mean, some people might say that Sargon is extreme character. Sargon of the card is, I mean, somebody who I would say he hits the nail on the head nearly every time with most of his discussions. And even though we don't maybe agree on literally everything, that's never going to happen. It seems like a decent person. Other people are seeing them as like, you know, maybe like, oh, how could somebody be that bad or whatever? You know, like I don't know, but either way, it's. I mean, is it just me that everywhere they go, it's like they're seeing things that they can't quite take seriously, like the whole was the one recently the guy or the wax my balls trans.
Yeah, I know who you mean. I don't know their name because my brain wasn't worth like filling that piece of information as like a memory, so I never memorized it. But yeah, we all know who that is because it's a hot topic.
Every piece of information I've heard about it makes me think this could be one of those post-Poe players.
Maybe. I don't think so. I'm sceptical about that. But then some people don't get copper cab is Poe's law.
Yeah, I mean, it could. This is the thing, because I mean, there's another philosophical law, Hanlon's razor, which is the idea that you should never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. So you could even say that as never attribute to intentional misinformation or being a dick that which could adequately be explained by not getting it.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples of that, to be honest. Sense, it's like people don't give each other the benefit of the doubt.
Are they pretending to be somebody not getting it, or do they really not get it? Because either could be equally plausible, it seems.
Yeah, frustratingly so, and disappointingly so, and depressingly so, I guess.
Sometimes very innovative, and sometimes people are very stupid. Which are these people? It's like, you know...
Can we go on like a little divergence there? Because like, with Hamlin's razor... I kind of have this feeling that we should probably try to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're not being malicious, that they're just ignorant. And I can forgive ignorance.
I think
but I'm not going to like...
don't as well. A lot of people, I think, like they see somebody being ignorant and they're like, hey,
you're a bad person.
You should be punished for your ignorance. It's like,
no one should be like...
Give people the opportunity to learn.
No one should be treated badly because they've made a mistake, and no one sort of gives them that opportunity to go, hang on, do you want this opportunity for me to educate you, and then you can retract that? They just go, bam, I'm gonna fucking attack you for that, because predatory instincts, intellectually predatorial, I guess, because it's a good way to go, look, I got you, bam, me smart, you stupid, me big, you small, look how fucking amazing, and maybe it's a form of virtue signaling.
I think there's a rational reason.
This is what's happening with like our working class.
I think there's like it's not just something that you can just go, because God said so. I think it actually makes sense. Nobody's in a position to judge people.
This is Sargon's topic and Sargon's point, in fairness, but what he's bringing up about our working class, more likely to be less educated within reasonable prejudgment. So
in the traditional terms of the term educated, if you mean educated by the state,
So what that causes is they will come out with things that might sound malicious or incorrect, but this is again Hamlin's razor, because they just don't know any better, and no one's giving them the better of the doubt. They're going, these are horrible, racist.
To follow their politically correct kayfabe.
They've been told, people are like attacking them, going, oh, that they've said this and they've said that and they've said this. They must be horrible, racist, evil Nazis. It's like, no, maybe they just don't know any better.
Yeah, I mean, the baffling
give
thing
them
is
the
that
benefit of the doubt and teach them
by one a lot of the time. It's like, oh, there's one associated with them all, that's the same bloody thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've said this before about Antifa. As much as I think they should be labelled as a terrorist organisation, you could probably look within people who call themselves a member of Antifa and find people who actually get
quite reasonable, but just they've been sucked into a crowd that maybe. Yeah. My opinion on that though is they've been sucked into a group and not understand the full gravity of what that group's touting. They're going, oh well. And fascists, they might have.
There's probably some victims inside of Antifa, but they're not victims of the patriarchy or
we've seen,
whatever, fascism
the By Any Means
like
Necessary, which
they're victims of the group and society as a large.
Well, we have seen examples of that. It has been covered where, because it's my understanding, By Any Means Necessary is at least some sort of sense of an offshoot of Antifa, and By Any Means Necessary is a cult that does draw people in, and then you do get victims in that, because any cult, if you try to leave, you will then treated terribly, and you perpetrate all these horrible actions of the group for the purpose of their own security. But I think it's a case of some people just go, I've got the traditional definition of fascism in my head, as in someone who is actually trying to impose their will unfairly upon like a group. And so they go, oh, well, these guys say they're anti that, so they must be good, and not actually understand what that group's about. So they get sucked into it, associate themselves with it, and then
nobody who has a good
get on the inside and go, oh,
fascism. Never heard it.
I didn't realize like these people were like this, but now I'm associated with them, and that's kind of like it's not some sort of semblance of a permanent mark, but it's at least got like a lasting mark. But yeah, so we are surrounded by Poe's law in this day and age. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating.
It
gets me at least multiple times a week.
You hear about the grievance studies?
Go on.
They call them the grievance studies, and it's basically a group of disillusioned academics involved in various fields, mostly psychology, decided we've had enough of feminist dogma infiltrating academic papers and research, and what is basically informing the people, the world, society, progress, all these sort of things. So they were like, right, let's just make up a bunch of nonsense studies and see if we can get them published and see if they ask any questions. And I think some of them got turned down, but a few that went through was like the dog park rape culture studies, where right, so like
it sounds like a band name.
Dog walker and dog park rape culture, and then said,
what was their definition of rape culture?
About rape culture. Well, this is the thing. It was all made up. I've not actually read all the studies.
But hang on,
a great amount of detail.
Do we at least have like some semblance of context here? Because at the moment I'm like, I don't know what to make. What were they trying to imply?
They were trying to imply that the behaviour of dogs in dog parks mirroring some amount of social behaviour in human beings means that like all men are rapey or something. I don't even know. Honestly, I didn't actually read the paper.
I can't even
I've read about comprehend the paper,
what
but I've
they're
not
trying
read
to say.
The paper itself.
I just want to say though, like, what were they expecting? Like, dogs can't consent to each other.
Like one of them
female dogs can't consent to male dogs. I had this conversation
exactly. I mean,
not conversation. Like, I've had my dog
I've not read them because I know they're going to be questionable on every level, basically.
I've had my dog for 2 years now, and she grew up with some other dogs in my local park who was like about the same age, and obviously there's male dogs that are like a little bit older, and they just come to the point where they're like sexually mature, and they were running around humping all the other dogs, like mostly the female dogs, and we just sort of. Someone turned to me, looked like us as a group of like lads just stood there with our dogs, and the dogs are running around playing together and having fun because that's good for them. In the sense of they're just innocently playing. But one of them who had just gone through like dog puberty and was getting frisky, and so someone turned to us and just said, "Dogs basically just rape each other, don't they?" And we're like, "Yeah." There's no like consent in any of it. So, like, what are they expecting? Like, because how can they equate humanity and our ability to have this rational process and our privilege of being able to ask, do you want me to have sex with you, rather than just assuming I'm going to take you and I'm going to force sex upon you? How can they even begin to equate the two?
Yeah, no,
what do they hope to achieve by that, like, line of thought?
Yeah, this is the thing.
But I guess this goes round to proposed laws again.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't remember all the studies that were in it, but I mean, yeah, that was achieved, and I mean, this is the thing. If that sort of stuff can go under the radar, it just shows how nonsense academia is, at very least, and people's interpretations of society. Because a lot of the time, people are accepting things without asking question, and it's like they should be asking question everything. And it also makes me wonder, like, the whole skepticism movement that seemed to be, somehow quelled. It was almost like
I think everyone decided being labelled a skeptic became cringy, so it got abandoned. I wouldn't say quelled, I'd say abandoned, because it's like,
because I've been calling myself a skeptic basically before the internet existed, or at least before I had the internet. Like, since we all just had a mobile phone in our pocket. We just had
and even then,
PC
that was like a benefit.
Yeah, but it was a very strange thing that it just seemed to die out of nowhere, and it was like put down as an infighting thing. And I was skeptical of the collapse of the skeptosphere. Let's say. So it could be one of these things, it begs the question, like, how much of the socio-political landscape is complete bullshit, and who's behind it, and nobody has the answers to the questions, it seems. So it's like, until we do, I think we should remain skeptical.
There's never going to be a drawback to that, really, and like, interesting, like, I don't know, maybe not even worth more than a couple of sentences, but cynicism as a branch of skepticism, like, cynicism's kind of like skepticism with a bit more
preemptive skepticism.
Yeah,
I was already skeptical of this. I'm skeptical of everything.
It's kind of like skepticism plus nihilism.
Yeah,
probably the best way I could describe it.
The idea that everything's questionable. There's got to be a hole in everything.
There's got to be something negative about everything, surely. Because
the purpose of inspection is to discover the flaw.
Yeah, I can be cynical, and the funny thing is, like, I remember from a young age, like, I exhibited cynical behaviours, and my dad's boss was like, simple. "Why is he so so cynical?" And my dad just said, "It's got his mum to blame for that one." Cool.
Yeah.
I want to go on to our next one then. I've got an interesting one. So, I don't even know where this one's going to go, but like, I've titled it "The Responsibility of Watching Failure or Catastrophe," and I think where I'm going with this, I think if I remember, what spurred this topic was looking at video. Well, we look at videos of things going terribly wrong. You get the not collaborations, what am I thinking of? When there's like a collection of videos that are sort of in a montage. There's a word for it and I can't think of it on top of my head, but no, it's really on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember it though, but people watch like Jackass in one sense. 10 videos or whatever. No, not even top 10 videos, just like, here's a reel of fucking tons of people falling off skateboards and like smacking their face, and then like that's like the tame one. Like, no, not even playlist. Yeah, no, I can't remember it. It's sort of a pseudonym for collection. It'll come to me later. Let's not get hung up on that though. Yeah. But then you got like, that's quite minor of people having sports injuries. And within Chan culture, there'll be like ones that are a bit more like, here's a thread and people are dumping their little GIFs or WebM, which is the more modern version of a GIF format video, of people getting fucking killed because like
there's
not in a gory sense, but it'll be like
that rabbit hole,
it's not like in a gore sense. It'll be like CCTV footage of someone stood around at a petrol station and a car careers into it and smacks someone. Now, so there's a duality of this conversation. One is, are vicarious... No, I'll define vicarious rather than just throwing it around, because not everyone knows, but the need to experience something through watching, and this goes back to our conversation earlier about watching Monkey.
Yeah.
Vicariously experiencing these tragedies and these horrible events and not being able to avert your gaze. And I think it's probably something that gets learned. I think it's like not nurtured, but I think you habitually develop it as a attribute of yourself.
You mean it's not something that comes natural to people, yet it's something that's like nurtured into them?
I wouldn't even say nurtured though, because nurtured would have to be an influence of someone else.
Well, that would be an influence of society, how they like
because it can be
pressure around watching horror
no because like
that could be an influence.
Yeah, it could be, but like that's not necessarily the case. Is what I'm trying to say.
Saying.
What I'm trying to say is like, it's if I was younger, something like that, I'd be like, oh, I don't want to see that. And then as you grow older, you become more desensitized to it, and as you become more desensitive
to it now than I was when I was a kid.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, you've described that before, actually.
No, I blacked out when I first asked myself the question: what is it that drives people to watch other people suffer? I blacked out, like literally, like
because it's like
people were crowding around.
That's the point here. That's exactly it.
I was like, because I don't do that. I don't want to see that other things. I mean, things that are a comical representation of it, like in a completely abstract sense, where it's just like, we're joking about this to get over the fact of how horrible these things are. Then that's I like, comedy's always been a coping mechanism for me. It's probably my favoured coping mechanism. I don't want to have to be desensitized to tragedy. So I'll just avoid watching those sort of things most of the time, because I don't have to, because I shouldn't have to, really.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's fair. Right.
The fact that other people are driven to do so, it's like it does make you wonder, and it's it could be I think it could be to a degree an evolutionary thing where it's like people are drawn towards this sort of stuff because that's what they'd experience in life, and that was what I suppose. Also,
if you see it happen to someone else, you've got to the experience of learning to avoid it occurring to you.
It depends what sort of state of nature you believe in. If you believe in the Hobbesian state of nature or the Rousseauian state of nature.
If you watch someone like swimming out in the sea, like if we're going back, and everyone knows that you swim. If a shark attacks you in a shark-infested water, you know not to do that. But maybe this is the instinctual thing: is before people knew that, you see someone swimming in the water, sharks attacking them. And maybe there's something within us that says keep watching and see what happens. Because you can learn from that, and you can learn that, oh no, they escaped, that's fine, this is something we can do. Or no, they didn't escape, that person died. And maybe there's something within us that compels us to view it, to make sure we learn the full experience there as part of, again, I guess maybe another call back to survival instinct.
I suppose,
maybe this is residual,
because on one hand, seeing it gives you more basis for believing what would happen, but at the same time, surely we already know these things. I think it's probably because I don't know.
Yeah, but we didn't always.
I don't like the idea of trying to imagine tragedy. Why
I can
imagine
understand
tragedy?
that.
There's enough tragedy already.
I don't see appeal in horror films.
And I would hate to appeal to ignorance is bliss in any sense, but it's.
Something about it makes you uncomfortable, though, and you don't want to be uncomfortable.
Something that you should pursue. It's not that forcing everything that's bad about things upon yourself is something that's going to be something that you should have to do or want to do. but maybe it's good for you. Like maybe there's.
So I mean, I know you're probably going to feel very strongly about this, and this isn't necessarily my conviction, but it's just like a spin or a thought of it is, if this tragedy's already been recorded, and it's already occurred, and it's not going to compel more tragedy to occur. What is the harm, and why shouldn't we gain value out of it by exposing ourselves to what's already been captured and occurred historically?
It's not that we shouldn't. It's just I don't think we need to. I don't think it's necessary. And I don't,
but a lot of things aren't necessary. Entertainment isn't necessary.
I'm not saying that the footage shouldn't be available.
No.
And I'm not saying that...
You could. You can argue it's morally wrong to gain entertainment value out of it.
That whether if that's an aspect of humanity that, although exists, is one that needs to be pandered to and entertained, because it's almost like, I don't know. There's maybe certain I don't know, human potentials that shouldn't be. Maybe it shouldn't be best followed. And I mean, there's all kinds of extreme ones from like. I mean, like self-harm, for example. It's like people could self-harm. There's probably an evolutionary function to self-harm, some sort of like cry for help mechanism, but it's like it shouldn't be done. And I mean, what I'm saying is, I suppose, is it self-harmful or even unself-harmful for people to pursue to watch things that would effectively desensitize them? And although you say you can learn what happens in these situations, and maybe that makes people more ready for it. Maybe
I was about to say, like, there's value in desensitizing yourself, because say catastrophe does occur, someone gets brutally gored in some way, but they're not, maybe they're dying. Now, if you just go, oh, I can't look, oh, panic, oh, and that's going to override your ability to be able to assist in the situation. If you're desensitized, you've then got the ability to go, this doesn't affect me mentally, I can calmly assist and improve this situation without panicking or feeling unsettled. And there's value in that. I mean, paramedics surely become desensitized. They're not going to enjoy seeing something horrible occur, but they surely get desensitized. There's definitely value in becoming desensitized to things. Maybe it is a vehicle in which we can desensitize ourselves.
I don't know. I mean, honestly,
I don't think it's necessarily a good thing. I definitely couldn't say it's morally good. I'd say it is taboo to like enjoy vicariously.
The reason why I don't want to watch it is because I know that the motivations behind all this sort of stuff, the whole weight of it, just completely. It's almost like it's what motivates my empathy in a way. So it's like I don't want to lose empathy. I don't want to give up my empathy to make myself more comfortable. And like if I came to a crunch situation, like I'm hoping that my empathy would be a hell of a lot more useful than my ability to be used to squeamishness. And I think empathy can drive you much further, I think, than being used to things. Like I think it would give more opportunity for raw spontaneous brilliance rather than like cold calculated measuredness. I think that's more of a useful thing, but that's just me at the end of the day. And I mean, there might be people out there that's just they need that. That's useful to them or whatever. It's useful to everybody, but I don't know. I don't even like to say what's useful.
I mean, at some point, like, this is me personally. If someone does something, I mean, we all understand the concept of Darwin Awards, though. If someone does something that you would consider earning a Darwin Award, there's also part of like my empathy dissipates in the sense of if they were stupid enough to cause that kind of event to occur, do I empathise with them as much? That is the question that sort of gets asked in my head, kind of. I mean, I know that can sound really cruel.
If I step on a snail, I'm really upset. Yeah. I mean, like I have to get over it. I have to move on. But
maybe that's just where I'm a bit more edgy.
I wouldn't deliberately do things to cause harm to things.
I'll give an example. There's one of...
I can't understand what it is to be something else, so I wouldn't infringe upon it.
A load of some very daft women, and one of them, she's hanging out of like the passenger window in a car, topless, and she's going, woo, and she hits a lamppost. And it's just like, you only had yourself to blame. I don't sympathise with that, and that does sound...
I don't do blaming of selves and such. I mean, I think that's a product.
There was a loss of a life there.
Yeah, it's not all their fault. I mean, you could blame everybody who's ever existed in society before her, in a sense, because any one of them could have gone like, we shouldn't encourage women to drive down the street so fast without paying attention. They can have a rack out if they want.
It wasn't that she wasn't paying attention. No, this was a passenger.
Caused her to die.
This was a passenger hanging out of the vehicle.
Yeah, so she shouldn't be hanging out of vehicles.
Yeah.
But we already know don't hang out of vehicles.
And yet she was stupid enough to.
Yeah, it was...
So...
but some people are stupid.
How can I feel bad for her? That's my question.
I feel bad that some people are stupid. It's bad for everything. It's bad for her. It's bad for...
Yeah.
I mean that's a... You know... I don't want that stuff to happen.
But you can't be so stupid.
It's like, I know it happens.
Part of it's just like, I can't even like vocalise it. I suppose it's like...
It's like, you know...
How can you be so stupid
it's almost
to
like
not
saying,
believe
like,
that there'll be a
don't you
consequence?
want to know what the shit sandwich tastes like? It's like, no, I don't want to...
No one wants to know what the shit sandwich tastes like. But she did! She thought, what will happen if I hang out this window? Let's find out.
It's like, do you know what shit exists? Yeah, but why don't you want to look at it?
Then why did she try the shit sandwich?
But she wasn't trying a shit
sandwich.
She was having fun. She was.
But she should have known. She must have known better and chosen to ignore that knowledge.
Pursuit of happiness is a dangerous thing. It can lead people into doing silly stuff. I mean, look at Steve Irwin.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's lots of people who've like died doing stupid things. It's just human beings. It's tragic. It's one of the tragic aspects of humanity is that people make stupid errors. Like. And sometimes like maliciously so, you know, that's just one of the you know, that's
part of it.
That's
like
almost
eats
a fun
away
one.
my
I
pity,
might be able
though.
to like laugh at the same time as I'm like gonna feel a bit like didn't need to see that. But you know, so
I started off as I didn't
it,
need to see that,
like,
and
man, why would you even want to put that picture in your head? That's how I think. And
yeah.
I mean, me saying that this is what brought me to this phrase TM social kayfabe. But you know,
explain that one.
Social kayfabe, like right. So kayfabe is the idea that in wrestling that you act like wrestling's real, and you act like your character's real, and you act like wrestling's all real. And yeah, maintaining kayfabe is wrestlers' way of doing that, and it's a term. So it's almost the term's probably got origins before that, but
that's its current utility.
But that's its current usage, right? I think there's such a thing as social kayfabe, where people just like act a certain way, do certain things, literally because it's social kayfabe. And I've got a habit of breaking social kayfabe, so I'll say things that will like people don't say that. It's like. I had to become consciously aware. I had to think to myself like, probably shouldn't do that. But like when people say like, you know, weather's horrible today, or it's nice and sunny today. It's like I like all the weather because I do like all the weather.
I think it's important to like do that though and say that though because.
But it's like they insist on complaining about the weather, and they'll go, "Oh yeah, but it's it's awful though, isn't it?" And it's like it was alright yesterday. It's like yeah, I don't know, I didn't really pay attention. It's not a huge. Impactful. I
think that's part of British culture, isn't it? And
yeah, no, but that's what I mean. But like, I had to stop myself consciously, and I'm gonna have to start actually going. Oh yeah, it's awful weather, isn't it?
No, fuck it, don't. Don't say I like all weather. Do say fuck it, I don't care. Like
something I think about this. What I mean,
I think more people should. I think there's a value to that.
Hyper cognitively aware of my own self. But, like,
no, I think there's value to like fucking break the mold and just say nah, fuck it, I don't give a shit. It's like my one at the moment.
But I mean,
people are
sometimes it's like when you've got kids in school and that, and they're like, they want to have a conversation. And
well, that's different, I guess. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The one I'm struggling with at the moment is because
best to avoid them. Really, I think
I've gone through something pretty fucking terrible in the past few months, and I'm coping, and I get through day to day, and I'm mostly happy. But no, I'm not okay. and I can quite confidently say, no, I'm not okay. Like, it's fine. It's okay to not be okay all the time. Because if I was okay after what's happened, there would be something wrong with me. So it's quite right that I'm not okay right now.
One of the problems I have is nowadays is people are all trying to make out they're okay. It's like, no.
Yeah, that really fucks me off. I want people to tell me when they're not.
Everything's not okay. Like, nothing's okay.
I'm dropping money now.
There's always something up. Like, the world seems to be in a state of complete turmoil and conflux. How can everything be okay?
Yeah,
like,
but
if
this
everything's
is right.
okay, you're probably not paying attention.
So here's my point. My point is, I answer the phone where I work, and every single fucking time, almost without failure, someone says, "All right, Adam, are you okay?" And it's just like, I have to do social kayfabe, like you say. It's like, yes, I'm okay.
Yeah. This is the thing.
What can I do for you? It's like, stop fucking asking me if I'm okay. I'm fucked off that every single... I wish people just say...
Paths. Like, because where I walk around where I live, there's like all kinds of paths and they go through the trees and such, but you can just go through the trees and not walk on the path. And I do that a lot of the time. So instead of going...
Hang on, let me vent here, because I'm really fucking struggling with this, actually.
They're like, what are you doing?
This is something I'm quite passionate about.
The path less chosen.
Yeah, no, I'm really fucking struggling with like social kayfabe at work. Like, there is a tear welling behind my eye right now. That's how, because people are asking.
I think that's good.
I'm just like the idea. Fucking fed up of people saying, "Are you okay?" Because I can't answer honestly, and that will take us on to our. That's a good like fucking segue for our next one.
That's all I know how to say.
Well, yeah, and it's just like they're just being polite and they're just trying to be nice and they're just trying to do what's socially acceptable. Yeah. And maybe they do sincerely mean it, but it's just like, stop fucking asking me.
Well, I'm sure it'll work out all right in the end.
Well, no, I don't want to explain it because I don't want to fucking drop my drama on everyone's lap.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to fucking. They don't want to hear it. They don't really give a shit.
So I've always struggled.
If every single time someone asks me if I'm okay, I would spend, if I could spend half an hour talking their ear off. Well, one, I'd be mentally exhausted from the experience, but two, it would waste so much time in the day I wouldn't get any work done. So I just force the conversation. I don't even reply now. I don't even say I'm okay. I just say, what can I do for you? And that comes, and people have noticed that. People have like, there's someone who's phoned me a few times, and every time I'm like, what can I do for you? And it is sharp, because it's just like, I just want to fucking move the conversation on. And they're like, so they've started like fucking parroting it back to me, going, what can I do for you? It's like, yeah, but come on, you know, what's this phone call about? I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to get on and fix your problem, make you happy, let you get on with your work, let you get on with your day, resolve it to a satisfactory level so you're pleased with the outcome, and then I can get on and do something else that I was working on. And I don't want to like take time to have this nicety. On the other fucking point of that though, is speaking to someone like my sister who's had problems herself similar to mine in this past year, and I'm asking her, Gemma, are you okay? And I'm not doing it as part of social kayfabe, of a polite nicety. Why would I need to make small talk with my sister? Why would I need to like make fucking conversation? It's not been
presented already
like,
that
Gemma,
you're not okay.
Tell me, are you all right?
Yeah.
I don't want. Yeah, I'm fine. I want. No, I've had a shit week, and I went and had this conversation with her like last weekend, because it was like, you're not well. I know you're not well. Open up to us, because we're an open and honest family. We all talk about our problems together, and we all help each other, and we're all very accepting. So there's no reason to try and hide it. Especially
quite lucky to have a culture of honesty in your family.
Yeah. The issues she's experiencing are issues that I've experienced. So, and when I experienced those issues, I went and told her and my parents individually, but straight away, so they were aware of what was going on with me in my life. So she knows she can talk to me about it, and if she doesn't want me to talk back, if she wants me to listen, whatever, or I'd like to be aware how she is, but I don't want her to just say I'm fine, because that's social kayfabe. If that's the reply for "Are you okay?" It's like, no, I really mean it. Like, actually tell me.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's like this polite culture within Britain has devalued our ability to communicate.
Culture of closeness. Culture of closeness.
But it's also habitual politeness as well as a side thing.
Throughout the history of Britain, there's been also these subcultures of openness and free expression, or at least alternative expressiveness, and sometimes completely free expressiveness. We've had punks and metalers and all sorts of mods and rockers and ravers and all these sort of things, and they've always been trying to break free from the social kayfabe, the cultural norm. The you tell me that this has to be this way, well, I'm going to show you a different way of doing it. The alternatives. This is what I'm trying to really push, this whole idea of alternativism as it's something that could unite a lot of people. It seems to be the one thing that's it was behind all the skepticism. I mean, it's even anything that's other. There's no such thing as normal. This is the thing with people. So everybody's the alternative. We've all got different ways of seeing things, and the trick is to try and see how each other is seeing things, so we can put all our perspectives together and see things as a bigger picture. But it doesn't often work that way. Some people want to spend a lot of time judging and very little time understanding. So it's if you can't make a judgment without an understanding. But they want to just skip straight to the judgment.
You're bad.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the case. Well, work out why you think they're bad first before you make that proclamation.
Yeah, because emotional reaction can be bad. They've caused an emotional reaction. Is it them that's caused it, or is it just Yeah.
So one last point on the current topic before we move on is it's kind of like a side thing of what we're talking about, but in a lot of these examples I've seen of, here are videos of something, normally a loss of a life in some circumstances, or something quite severe in all honesty, and a lot of the times if it's in a public space, you see people around witnessing the event and they just watch. So it's not just me watching the video or the thousands of other people watching the video of this tragedy. The people around, when it's actually occurring in front of their faces, are just watching it occur, letting it play out in front of them. It
back to my point earlier on that
there's
people
two
are a lot
sides
better
of
watching than they are actually doing these
things. There's two sides of it. So the first side of it is something I talked about with an acquaintance a long time ago when we were talking about the idea of adrenaline-based reactions during severe times with the fight or flight mechanism of the amygdala. But what doesn't get talked about is the third one of those, which is freeze. And that doesn't get talked about by psychologists a lot. They just introduce, here's the ideas of fight or flight, and that's it, and they move on. But freeze is a reaction, and it's not flight, because flight is the mechanism of your body and your brain telling you escape from this situation because it's dangerous. So fight is saying to engage in this situation to try and overwhelm it and overcome it. Freeze is the mechanism of you just stop and you can't act and you just observe.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so
because I've had a theory that that obsession and interest is nearly the same thing as fear. I mean, in fact, it's or at least they're somehow very closely linked, even maybe in a phenomenological sense.
Do you mean in extreme senses?
Well, put it this way: my wife used to be completely terrified of snakes, and now since I've managed, me plus the world hopefully has managed to cure her of this phobia of snakes. She's now obsessed with snakes. She watches snake videos.
So not in every circumstance, but in certain circumstances, that could be the case.
Well, I
wouldn't say it was every form of obsession is fear-based.
Did we not have the same opinion? I think we might have mentioned before when we were young, we'd look at pictures of deep sea creatures and we'd be like, those are really, really scary. And then you became really interested, or was that just me?
I think it's just you.
It was just probably just me.
Not so much in a sense. I've always just thought I've never found them terrifying, and lots of people say
when I was tiny, I did.
Things in the Mariana Trench. They say, "Oh, that's terrifying," and fucking lanternfish and things like that. And I've never found them terrifying or scary. I've just been like, "That's an interesting."
Logan was terrified
creature.
by space. Somebody I know, not the dogs.
As in the vastness of the void, or the idea of being in the vacuum,
whole idea of everything about it, all the it's made of fire, it's you can't breathe there. Like everything about it was terrifying, but then he became obsessed and fascinated with it. So maybe there's.
I don't think that's always the case, but there's certainly circumstances where that is the case.
When you overcome something you're terrified of, it can easily become a fascination.
Yeah,
and then
keyword there is
can. Can, yeah.
Doesn't necessarily
mean
because
I can't present that I know the mechanism and I can only reel off certain cases, but there's definitely been times where I can observe this has happened. When people overcome something that's a fundamental fear, that then it becomes an obsession. So I mean, that maybe is a danger of this sort of people watching things that should be in or may well be in a lot of senses.
I get what you mean.
Fundamental
it can
fear.
Become like
it might end up becoming an obsession. And
I had a friend that I used to talk to online.
Could be a problem, but
and
people should
I
be free
think
to do
that happened to him. I think
Mm.
I don't know what he was looking at. He wouldn't like he only went into the topic very vaguely, but it's someone I purely talked to online that lived in another country. And he basically alluded to he was watching some sort of type of video. I don't think it was child porn or anything that bad. It was probably just like gore or something, if I had to guess. But he was watching some sort of video of that, and it did become an obsession. So yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that's the next stage beyond desensitization.
Yeah, and it's always of
because
something
maybe it's like something to do with
self-programming.
self-programming.
Scared of,
Yeah,
so
maybe
it's something that you transfer. It's almost like the fear only has the option of moving to the next possible great psychological manifestation. So the next big thing it could do would be an obsession, because the brain decides maybe, or brain adapts to say, well, you can't be terrified of this because you're seeing it and having to deal with it.
And nothing bad happened when you saw
about it, and you
saw it multiple times, and nothing bad happened. So it must be good.
So it's almost like
maybe not must be good, but maybe your brain's telling you it can't be bad.
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be able to present how that happens, but it seems to be a thing that happens.
But yeah, so I was saying it's concerning how many times you see these people who seemingly just. I don't think they're watching out of enjoyment when these things are happening in front of them. I think it's interesting to see how many people have this freeze mechanism occur, and that's all they can do. They can just stand and watch. And it's like, if they could overcome that, maybe they could have assisted and stopped something so terrible happening. But because the freeze mechanisms occurred instead, and they can't help but watch,
as well. If it's out of nowhere and something's just happened, what can you do at that point but just stand and watch? It's like, okay, it's literally
watching someone get dragged away by a tiger. And there's 20 people around, and instead of like...
I would go and fight that tiger.
Oh, yeah, honestly. Yeah. But sometimes these 20 people just freeze and they're just watching it occur. If it was
20 people with guns, then maybe I wouldn't try and fight those 20 people with guns.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying 20 people are watching someone get dragged away by a tiger.
Yeah.
Those 20 people could easily overpower the tiger and save that person. But they don't. They freeze and they just watch it occur, and it occurs, and then a tragedy happens because they just stood and watched. I don't think they're necessarily to blame for standing watching, because as I've explained, I think it's beyond their control. They've had an emotional reaction and it's paralysed them.
And they don't know what to do in that situation. And it's not something they're used to or experiencing. This is the thing. I think that the difference between watching a situation like that and being in a situation like that is probably a very different thing.
But when I say watch, they're stood matters of meters away. They could have easily become involved.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one to see that's how...
I'm saying how it would affect
because
people.
that's surely counter-revolutionary.
If you're actually in a situation
or maybe it's
like
part
that,
of our bodies going...
so it's something
we need to let... Well, no, hang on, I've just had a thought.
It won't prepare you so much because it's an abstract thought about it rather than an experience of it.
Maybe this phenomena is maybe ingrained into us instinctually, because maybe that's allowing evolution to occur.
I said there's likely an evolutionary mechanism for it.
It might be that we need to let this happen because that needs to be removed from the gene pool because it's been so stupid as to provoke this line, if we use that example. Maybe that's why they collectively freeze rather than stopping it.
Maybe. Well, it's part of the freezing is probably because something that's not moving would not be perceived as prey. But
don't focus on that example, but that as an example.
Animals.
Yeah.
So their psyche.
What I'm saying is there might be a mechanism within us that is supposed to let tragedy occur as part of evolution.
Maybe. Well,
I'm not saying that's a virtuous thing or valuable, but I'm just saying that might be
the fact that people
at a lower level, more
art,
basic,
and that this is a philosophical paradox in a sense, has been something that's been voiced as a concern since the ancient Greeks. They questioned whether should people watch this sort of stuff. Certain films over the years have been banned because, or even books and things have been banned because they could cause people apparently problems. But sorry, kind of half tangent.
Right, do you want to introduce the last one for tonight? You pick between two that you've presented.
I think maybe we'll just talk quickly about Edgelords, the modern cultural phenomenological existence of, because the other option would be truth as the ultimate ideal, which is something that's probably
that's
a way
meaty.
Deeper. I think we've already been. I'm getting to the point where it might be safe to not get too deep, because otherwise I might end up again completely lost and it'll be dark and we won't understand anything at all anymore. Edgelords. We probably don't need to.
I've obviously made it very clear that I am what would be considered an edgelord. That's fine.
Would you say that edgelords are a purely modern phenomenon? And I mean modern in the recent sense,
in the recent past decade at least.
Yeah.
I'd say probably since the early 90s. No. Let's go back to fucking late 70s, 80s. We would consider someone like Alice Cooper an edgelord.
Well, this is the thing that
this
I
is
wonder.
When the culture there must be
there's a lot
something
of things that I wonder here, because
from the beginning
is a term that a lot of people would probably be able to recognise, maybe, and even be able to apply a model or a description or a definition to it. But I think it probably still needs defining, and I don't know. It's how would you define edgelord?
Okay, off the top of my head,
quick
I'll try in a couple sentences.
This definition of an edgelord.
This is going to be your tactic of explaining things, though. So hang on, I'm going to go one word at a time here a little bit. Someone who has an enjoyment of what would be considered part of counterculture in a. This is going to sound like this is an oxymoron, but a minor extreme exhibition of what people would consider to be brutal, in the sense of
okay, that's interesting.
Liking things that are a bit sort of fierce, dark.
I would say they're people that explore the extremes. Maybe.
Yeah,
they.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, I'll give you my definition of what an edgelord is, and then maybe I'll try and flesh out how and why I've got to that, I guess. But edgelord is those who edgelords are those who define the edges and therefore the centres of things in the social landscape.
So that's more of a very very, very modern, recent way of looking at things.
It's probably extremely. It's probably a fairly revolutionary way of looking at it, because I think it needs a probably fairly revolutionary definition, because it's almost like the term edgelords has been picked up to describe a certain group of people that, or a certain kind of person that nobody's even begun to understand or even define or even iron out. But
if I was going to give you like
like you say, if these
archetype.
people they're looking at the extremes, they're looking at they're talking about the extremes, they're defining the extremes, they're literally defining the edges of things, the edges of the social landscape. How far can we push things and put the border on it, an edge on it, right? From that, once they put an edge and a border, define it all, they're pushing to the edges. That's where you can know where the centre is. So not only
I get what you mean.
So these people, I think, are fundamentally edgelords, are centrists.
In a sense, I mean, if we boil down, can we boil down to like a literal way of looking at it for a moment? Is edgelords are the fucking. Let's go with the stereotype of it's the sort of the people who if I'm going to go with like media, for example, it'd be the kid who likes Linkin Park. that angsty sort of feel. That's the more traditional way of looking at this, and accepting like, it's an outcasty type thing, I guess. I can't put it.
Because I mean, you're almost looking at it
define it amazingly well.
Somewhat of a derogatory term,
but owning that derogatory term. So, yeah,
this is what I mean, because I think
in the sense of I own that. Like, I would own that. You're talking about like kind of, I'm not going to say compasses, but like laying the world out into, I can't even put what you've explained into like words.
I haven't really finished so much explaining. I don't know. Probably had more to explain, but maybe I didn't.
But then there's like, it's kind of like you're taking a different definition of like something that's already defined in a sense.
Am I? Because you're saying that. You're almost saying that if somebody who's socially inflammatory,
it doesn't necessarily need to be.
I don't know
that. But I think that's kind of like what influences an edgelord, and I think it comes from like a base influences that then develop into aspects of a personality. So it's like more of a foundation.
Yeah, this is what I mean.
Because then you can develop from that outcast into someone who's then very social and charismatic, but you own that part of you and you never leave that foundation, so that remains as like a core part of a personality, I guess.
Yeah, I mean
and it's like it might have derogatory intentions, but part of it is also owning and like celebrating that within that's become what you are, and that's personally acceptable.
Maybe,
but this is like more traditional like ways of looking at the definition.
Is the thing, because I mean, like I say, if some people are using it as a derogatory term, and
I'm saying it doesn't necessarily need to be reviewed as derogatory.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I mean, it just seems to.
It's like, if you could appreciate something like Metalocalypse, you're a bit of an edgelord.
Yeah.
That's the way. So I mean, maybe what you're defining is not necessarily that. Maybe that's its own thing.
Well, I think maybe edgelords would just by nature appreciate Metalocalypse. But it wouldn't be just so much people that could appreciate Metalocalypse. I'm generally thinking that, I mean, maybe edgelords are those who will be willing to break social kayfabe.
Yeah, that's definitely what I would say is part of it.
And by doing so, they get to explore the edges of what can be possible inside that society or whatever. I don't know. And then it seems that the edge word and the lord word seem to present something that's more fundamentally true than the words.
I think you might have got hung up on a play on words.
But what it was me trying to explore whether those words are actually they present a true picture of what a definition of an edgelord could be presented as, and then it actually just made sense that yes, that definition is fairly accurate, because they do seem to be the people who explore the edges of what is socially possible. They do seem to be lords of that. Well, like you said at the beginning, they're the people that will probably have they'll want to, I don't know, push people's buttons. I don't know, be like you said, socially inflammatory or something. Or did I say that?
That was
my interpretation of what you said. Yeah, I mean, if an edgelord is somebody who does, sees what is just outside of or on the border of what is acceptable, and then just gets away with that.
Yeah,
then that's,
I get that. That makes sense. I mean?
So by doing that, then they're showing
if we can play around the edges,
like the outside of that, and then by nature of that, like both extremes of edgelord, because I suppose you might have, or any extremes of edgelord, you probably have like left leaning and right leaning edgelords, and like more authoritarian and less authoritarian edgelords, and different. It's probably a diversity of edgelords that if they were to, let's say, be demonstrating what's possible on the borders and right on the extremes of all social axioms or all social axes, then by that you'd be able to find what is in the middle of that, and then therefore they define the centre.
But an edgelord would normally like tackle one edge and go towards that, and
an individual edgelord would
sit on that, and then you'd have another edgelord that is more edgy in another way,
in a different way. Exactly, that's what I mean. So
I wouldn't say they're
all edgelords are going to be focusing on one thing. They're just going to be all operating independently. Like
I wouldn't say from that it relates to them individually being able to like show where the centre is. The idea, I guess, is dancing on the edge, I suppose, of being able to enjoy being able to dabble just on the very tip between what is acceptable and is unacceptable, and what through social
the edge
consideration.
That's what I mean. So by that, then if they're all the edgelords are all on the edges of things, showing people clearly and sometimes maybe even flamboyantly or whatever that this is where the borders are, using like humor or like sarcasm or like just like
the problem is people never interpret like
so it's like
as
almost like I'm saying
the innocence of it.
That's right,
because that's what the idea is also, is that encompassing.
I'm almost arguing that this is a value. There's a virtue to edgelords that society should be grateful for, because they're showing it what it is. It's like they're holding up a mirror to things, and they're showing the form of almost like explorers and geographers of like the ordnance surveyors of society, like showing the rest of the internal people, just saying where they are.
It's like if we look at someone like
where things are,
Count Dankula, for example, he enjoys parodying what would be considered a traditional racist, in the sense of someone who actually prejudges people based on their race, biological or cultural. But those aren't his true beliefs. He doesn't actually hold those beliefs of people are inferior or superior. He used
to be a bit of a communist
based on their cultural
less of
race.
A communist now.
But by parodying
he's being oppressed by communists, so that's going to happen.
But by parodying it, he gets to show people in a nonsensical yet sensible way of, look at how fucking terrible this is, but it's okay, I'm just kidding. But it makes people aware there are real versions of what is being parodied, and that's where I see the value in that. I've said many times before, people joke about what they find serious, and it's almost like it's paying homage to something that's a real problem. It's like a play
full of humour, so everybody can.
If you had a play where war occurred, it doesn't mean you're advocating for war. You're just demonstrating to people, look, here is war, so you can experience it. We're not trying to desensitize it to you. We're just trying to sort of raise awareness of this is a thing that happens, and look how terrible it is. And the medium here is through acting.
Maybe. I think, honestly, with that example, I think with war, like a lot of films do tend to evolutionarily glorify war. Like there's
I didn't say films, I said like a play, so I mean something more historical.
Okay.
And something more of as a cultured medium, rather than... I think the point you were going to make is a lot of modern film likes to glamorise something like war.
Human beings glamorise war.
Yeah.
I think is what I'd probably say.
So my example's more like, here's a medium to express and show people of the horror of it, to raise awareness of how terrible it is, but it's okay, this isn't real. And people don't realise, like, someone like Count Dankula is parodying racism for the point of, look how terrible this is. It's okay, I'm not really a racist.
This is what I mean.
But be aware of this.
Because the people who I don't know, maybe even publicise these gore videos and the tragedy videos and stuff that you mentioned before. I mean, you probably define them as edgelords. But I'd say not all edgelords are into that sort of thing.
No, because that's the other side of it. Is I made the example of it's the kid who listens to Linkin Park, but I mean
it's a modern alternative. Edgelords are alternative to the internet,
and it's also a very individualist thing because no two edgelords share the exact same interests. But if there's a piece of media with something like fucking demons running around, that's my jam, and that's why I would consider that's part of edgelord culture, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more for exploring art and exploring
if someone more traditional would see a superhero, an idealized superhero like Superman as a hero. An edgelord would see a less idealized hero like an anti-hero, or maybe more like a hero like Hellboy as their ideal hero.
Or they might see that ideals are there to be challenged.
Yeah.
And that maybe that the ideal can always be challenged, and even when you get a more, I know what you mean. I know what you're saying. That there's this. I guess what I'm saying is there's more to the edgelord concept than just liking Hellboy, or.
But there's a philosophical background to me giving that example, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe because they're looking to the maybe the darker side combined with the light.
To the principles of
edges of things. It's looking at things from how different they could be.
Instead of idolizing the glorious knight, maybe it's idolizing the grim warrior. Or the executioner.
I guess chaotic neutral or whatever.
Yeah, and maybe that's
maybe edgelords by definition.
I guess that's sort of center, and then moving over to an edge, which is, if it's one of the edges, it's one of the more neutral edges.
Yeah, because sometimes I mean, I think because you almost said or started to say that people like Alice Cooper in the past could maybe have been considered in some sense an edgelord, and I think
if we look at edgelord culture,
edgelordery is not necessarily a new phenomenon at all. No. In fact, maybe Shakespeare was looked at as an edgelord back in the day or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he's defining the edges. He's looking at the
it's
where are the edges of our society and how
championing the grim.
Because it's almost like, I mean, the metaphor and the analogy I'm looking at when I'm saying the define the edges, it's almost like they literally are mapping it out and then colouring it in. And showing people a picture of how things are, and that's, I think, what the internet edgelords of today are doing. It's like they're taking bits out, they're colouring in. This is what we're seeing with memes. This is what it's just that. It's that in action. It's showing people look how clear it is if you can see the edges of things, and then they're like, oh yeah, that is how clear it is. And then people need these edgelords to be able to have that, because some people are sheep. Sorry, but that's what it is. Maybe that edgelord is just the opposite end of the human sheep scale. But I don't know. Do
you understand what I mean, by the idea of championing the grim? I think that's probably a good definition
the macabre sort of. Like a macabre romanticism, almost.
I think that always plays into
Tim
what
Burton
you would call
poster child of that sort of thing. That's why, and Batman, with the gothic effect of things. I don't know what you're saying. What I'm saying, it's more
I'm
than
looking
an aesthetic.
at it more of a traditional. I wouldn't say aesthetic. I'd say culture.
You're trying to define it from the cultural definition.
And I know you're trying to look at it more from a philosophical.
I'm trying to unwind it and trying to find what is that defines this? That's why I want to hear what you have to say about it, because I don't. You've got a much better insight into these things than I have.
I can't quite see your take on it personally, but that's fine. I can still respect it.
It's almost like I'm trialing a hypothesis. Yeah. It's like, is this more than it just sounds like it works? Because it does sound like it works. That sounds like a piece of poetry, that if edgelords are those that define the edges, and that
I think because you asked at the beginning, can I put it into a sentence? Someone who lords over the edge between what is acceptable and unacceptable.
Yeah, maybe. Or the Lords of the Social Edges. I mean, that's
not what I just said. Well, I'm saying what my one is.
Okay.
That's my definition.
Well, I'd say for me,
how I would define
social is what is acceptable and unacceptable. So, I mean, I'm then taking yours and defining it in a simplified form. But yeah, I see what you mean.
Cool. I think that'll do. That's been a good hour and a half.
Yeah. Good talks we have, right?